Hello friends, welcome to our channel. This is the story of the ant and the grasshopper. Once upon a time in a green and pleasant meadow lived a colony of ants. One bright day in late autumn, the family of ants were bustling about in the warm sunshine, drying out the grain they had stored up during the summer. It was the kind of day that makes an ant want to dance. But these little creatures were far too busy for that. They had a lot of work to do if they were going to be prepared for the coming winter. A little while after, a strange-looking creature came up to them. It was dressed in rags and his fiddle was under his arm. It was a starving grasshopper who had eaten the last of his food and had come to the ants to borrow some. "What?" cried the ants in surprise. "You haven't stored anything away for the winter. What in the world were you doing all last summer?" The grasshopper felt a blush creep up his neck. "I didn't have time to store up any food," he whined. "I was so busy making music that before I knew it, the summer was gone." The ants shrugged their shoulders in disgust. "Making music, were you? Very well, now dance," they cried, and they turned their backs on the grasshopper and went on with their work. The grasshopper felt awful. How could he have been so foolish? All that time he had spent playing his fiddle could have been spent gathering food. Now he was too ashamed to look at the faces of the ants. So he turned around slowly and began to dance, leaping and jumping and skipping about. And the ants stood by and watched him, some with little smiles on their faces. At last, when the grasshopper was quite tired out, one of the ants said, "That's enough. Now go away and come back tomorrow and we might give you something then." So the grasshopper went away and sadly practiced his fiddle all by himself in the forest. He thought and thought how silly he had been to spend all his time playing his fiddle instead of gathering food. From that day on, he never played his fiddle again, but he spent all his time collecting food, which he stored up in a hollow tree. He worked all through the summer and dried up all his food properly in the autumn so that it kept well. And all through the winter he ate his fill and was never hungry. After a while, the snow began to melt and the warm days of spring were here once more. The animals came out of their winter homes and the birds built their nests in the trees. The grasshopper was very happy. He had plenty of food and he was very proud of his big store. One day he went out into the meadow and began to play his fiddle again. Oh, how happy he was to be alive and to have plenty to eat and to be able to make music now that the winter was over. All the animals stopped their work and came to listen to the grasshopper's sweet music. The ants were returning from their work, carrying crumbs in their mouths, when they heard the music. They too stopped and came to listen. Then one of the ants said, "Look there. It's the silly grasshopper playing his fiddle again. Let's go and tease him." So the ants marched up to the grasshopper and one of them said, "What? Have you stored anything away for the winter? What in the world are you doing all last summer?" "I didn't have time to store up any food," the grasshopper said proudly. "I was too busy making music." The ants looked at each other. They remembered how they had teased the grasshopper the previous autumn. Now he had plenty of food and was able to make music. They had nothing but the food they would gather that summer. From that day on, the ants and the grasshopper became the best of friends. They worked together during the summer and they made plans for the future. They all lived happily ever after. Moral of the story: there's a time for work and a time for play. Friends, What did you learn from this story? Share your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, let us know by giving it a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our new videos. Thanks for watching our channel. We'll see you next time.